Right.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome. Um, Vera, I see you're on, and what I'm doing is I'm going to unmute everybody. Did I unmute everybody? And because I'd like this to be interactive. Now I see Vera is with a phone. Does that mean that her mic is not working? I'm not too sure how to interpret that.
Or she needs to make sure she checks the radial button that says mic and speakers.
Uh-huh. So Vera, that's the recommendation is that you um, check that button that looks like a microphone on the screen here. That the little window that comes up.
No, there's a button underneath the audio. It says telephone or mic and
I
speakers,
see there.
and she needs to do the mic and speakers one.
Okay, Vera, you got that? Unless there's a problem. And Walter, I see you're with us as well. Welcome. I've unmuted everybody, and I hope that we don't have too much computer feedback, which creates quite a cacophony of sounds. So I will ask people to mute themselves, because right now I am echoing, and to unmute themselves as they wish to speak. Okay, so Walter, I guess you muted yourself, but somebody's sound is really echoing, causing me to echo. I don't know who that is, but in any event, it's better now. Okay, so we're going to begin, and what we did last time is we got as far as Aries. Okay, so again, I am echoing, so I don't know whose computer is causing that to happen. In any event, Aries, just to go over it very quickly so you'll get the rhythm of where we're going and how we're going, is, as you know, it's the first sign of the zodiac. And being first, it's an important placement. One always relates to one, number one. Number one also, from our esoteric perspective, can often mean first ray. And we do know that Aries is fire, and it does convey the first ray. As a matter of fact, it's one of the few of the signs that conveys three rays. The Tibetan, in some cases, has given us only one ray. In other cases, he's given us two rays. But in Aries, he's given us three rays. So it's 1, 6, and 7. The 6 is the most prominent one. It's the one most people react to and respond to. So it's the one that's most obvious. Why? Mostly because it is um, led by air, by Mars, and Mars is so forward moving. It is pushes, and it's aggressive, and it's very, very sixth ray. So the ruler Mars has such a powerful effect with Aries. So Aries is also the first, and the first is the beginning of a chart. If you are moving in a counterclockwise direction, it would be, well, in any case, it's still the one that is right on the horizon, and that is called our ascendant. And if we start with Aries, we would place Aries on the ascendant. And I will be showing you a flat chart at some point. Let me see if I can pull it up. No, I can't find it right now. I know I inserted it here so we can talk about that. There it is. Okay, so this is called a flat chart, and not everyone's chart looks like this. Why? Because not everyone has Aries. You can see my little cursor here on the horizon. But if we were to start with Aries, it would be right on the horizon, this being the horizon, and that would be the ascendant. But as we move through it all, we can have any of these signs on the horizon. So let's get back to number one, which is Aries. Aries is cardinal. So these would be the cardinal signs. I know we talked about this last time. Aries with its opposite Libra, and then the next right angle would be Cancer with its opposite Capricorn. Okay. Now, what do we remember about cardinal? Cardinal is action. It is forward moving. It's also masculine. Masculine, if we remember, would be the fire signs as well as the air signs. Being that it's the first, it always starts things. So therefore we say it pioneers because it begins. It's independent, it's on its own. First rate tends to be that way anyway. So one of the things we always remember about Aries, it is a beginner. And a lot of undeveloped Aries really do not like to finish things. They always like to start new things. The esoteric ruler is Mercury, and Mercury is such an important planet for Aries. Because of Mars, Aries tends to rush forward and do things without thinking. As a matter of fact, we will say that many Aries put their foot in their mouth. They just blobber what comes in right away without thought. They're very instantaneous in that way. Well, Mercury is all about thought. It allows Aries to think first and then move and act and say what needs to be said. So it's an extremely important ruler for Aries. A very well developed Aries can come up with all these new being number one, being the first one, ideas being Mercury. So it brings in all these new ideas and allows it to be innovative. And it allows Aries to be innovative, to come up with new ideas, which is so refreshing. So we know that about Aries. This is just a quick look at Aries because I know we covered it last time. Are there any questions about Aries before we move on to Taurus? I didn't want to go over the same ground. I just wanted to lay the foundation so that we can move along. I have all of you on not on mute, in other words, off mute, and I hope you self-mute yourself, especially if your computer's creating noises, and some computers cause my voice to echo. So if you find that your computer is doing that, please mute yourself and only unmute yourself when you want to speak. So in any event, if there's anyone that wants to say anything at this point before we move on to Taurus, this is the time to do it. Okay, so we're going to move along. Taurus is the second sign, and it is what the next mode would be. So cardinal is the first mode. The next mode is fixed. And so there, as we know, there are 4 signs on the fixed cross. Again, there'll be a cross with 4 signs on it, starting with Taurus. Its opposite is Scorpio. Then you have Leo, and its opposite is Aquarius. And again, depending on where it is, we can shift it around, but always the 4 create a cross. What does fixed stand for? As we said last week, fix is fixity. Just have to think of fixity. When something is fixed, it's not that movable. It doesn't have that kind of flexibility. It's not always forward into action. It's more stable. It's more conservative. It maintains. That's the kind of energy associated with fixed crosses. It is Earth. Well, again, fixed Earth would be the most fixed of all the of all the signs. Actually, can you imagine if water gets into Earth and if someone is immovable, and then when that Earth dries, how fixed one would be stuck in the Earth? It can be that way for fixed Earth. And hence we have expressions for Taurus that they're very stubborn, they're immovable, and we can see why, right? Even if you look at this picture here of the cow, can you imagine if those legs were to be stuck in the earth, how immovable it would be? Now, it conveys the 4th ray, Taurus, and what we know about the 4th ray? It's the ray of beauty. So there's a lot of beauty associated with Taurus. One of the reasons, of course, is that it is ruled exoterically by Venus. And Venus, as we know, is the goddess of love and beauty. So Venus in Taurus creates beauty, and in the Taurian experience, hands, because it's Earth, hands work well with the Earth. So things that the Taurians can make using the hands is often is seen in constructive areas, in painting, in gardening, and woodworking, and a lot of things where the hands, the hands get a chance to create the beauty. One of the things we can consider with Taurus, if we look at the glyph, now this isn't the best depiction of the glyph, and I must say, I used to have the glyphs beautifully shown on all my slides. And then when I changed computers, most of the glyphs disappeared and they became like coding. And I've not been able to replicate it. Every time I put a glyph in, and the next time I look at my PowerPoint, it's gone. So you have to almost use your imagination. So this glyph, and you can see my cursor here, has a round body, almost like the head of the Taurus, and above it would be like a half circle or like a moon shape for the horns. Now this half circle can be viewed in a lot of different ways, like a vessel. What is this vessel filled with? Well, in the early evolution of Taurus, the Taurian likes to amass and to assemble and bring together, to gather things to fill this particular vessel. So we can say of Taurians that they are materialistic and they like things, and they usually like things that are very attractive, things of beauty. A lot of collectors are Taurian. And if you go into a Taurian's home, it's very well designed and decorated because of the things that they amass and they collect. They're things of beauty. One of the things we know about Venus is that Venus is about what we love, what we appreciate, what we value. So, of course, what are we going to gather? We're going to gather things that we like, things that we value, things that we appreciate, and hence, again, can be very beautiful. Later on, as the Taurian becomes more evolved, that vessel at the top, or moon, starts to be the area of light. What do you gather? You gather wisdom and you gather light. Because Taurus is the only sign in the entire zodiac that has the idea of illumination associated with it. Its keynote is I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined. So it's the only one that really speaks of light. Later on, as I said, it gathers to itself wisdom and light. Venus rules the Ajna center. I'm sure a lot of you know this when we study the Wesak festival, and we study about the Buddha who was born and died in Taurus. He brought us wisdom and illumination. So that eye is referred to the Ajna center, where the eye of wisdom is. And Taurus is that particular sign that brings us that. Now, the esoteric ruler is Vulcan. And here we see a very good-looking Vulcan who is a blacksmith. Vulcan was known as the hammer of the gods. He's the one that used to forge the metal and make it very, very beautiful so that it could be worn as armor or headdress or anything like that. But as a forger, and if any of you have watched what blacksmiths do, they use a tremendous amount of will and power. We see that in their hammer, in their mallet that they're using there, where they are working on molding and fashioning this piece of metal. But then it has to be put into the fire and it has to be heated up. So what do you get? You get heat, you get steam, you get tremendous energy coming from that Vulcan worker. And if anybody is being affected by Vulcan, it can be a very pressure feeling experience. One is under pressure so that it creates within us or pushes within us or strengthens within us that spiritual will. It is often called the grip of the soul. It is the will, again, because Vulcan is first ray, and we see the glyph as best as I could find a glyph. You see right beside the word Vulcan a downward arrow. It's the will to change passion, which is the steam that is created when you put the hot metal into the fire. And then cool it off in water. It's the will to change passion into compassion. It's the will to change greed, because in Taurus, remember, it's amassing things, greed, into the sense of need. And what is the right sense of need? That takes wisdom. It's the will to be steadfast, to be steady, and to maintain. One of the things about Vulcan is in its work, it burnishes the metal so it shines and reveals the hidden life. We all know what that hidden life is, right? It creates within us rhythm, a process. And as I said, one would really feel the pressure of Vulcan's grip, and it would be like a pounding. And one can often refer to the experience as going through a burning ground. So it's not an ongoing thing. Usually the effect of Vulcan is sensed when Vulcan transits, when it's moving in the heavens, and it is affecting a particular planet in your chart. You can feel Vulcan's pressure. Vulcan is very, very close to the sun. It is almost said that Vulcan and the sun are one. So it's got tremendous power, first ray, associated with it. And I remember many, many years ago, Michael would say to us that many times when the sun is setting, the red hue that the sun gives off is the magnetic rays that Vulcan sort of streams into our atmosphere. Vulcan is not a formed planet that we know of. And what science can sense is that there is a magnetic field. And a lot of scientists that are not into the esoterics haven't got an answer for that. We, through the ageless wisdom, recognize that that magnetic field is the planet Vulcan. Okay, so any questions on Taurus so far? Anything anyone would like to comment? Everybody? Nobody's commenting. Okay.
Hi, Eva. Can I ask a question?
Sure. Is that Ray?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hi, Ray.
Hiya. First of all, do you know if there is an ephemeris for Vulcan? Is there such a...
That's a good question. The ephemeris that I'm familiar with, the one that I use, the very thick one or the thinner one, I don't think has Vulcan in it. Maybe solar fire. If I was to look in solar fire, I would see if there is. There
Eva?
is one. There BL, yeah.
Yes, there is one, but as a matter of fact, solar fire has two different versions of Vulcan, but both of them are suspect. The one that is by Baker basically assumed that Vulcan was captured by Mercury and therefore was within Mercury's orbit.
Right.
And that doesn't appear to be the case. And then there was another one I think Weston is the name on it. And it was supposedly devised with 3 sightings of Vulcan, but apparently 2 of those sightings were wrong. So it's really only based on 1 sighting, which couldn't possibly be accurate. So you can find it, the position in solar fire, but any position of it would be suspect. The most we know about it is it's within 8 degrees and 20 minutes of the sun.
And either side, correct?
Exactly.
Right. So I used to, when I used to do people's chart, I used to include Vulcan from the solar fire program. I've hence stopped doing that only because, again, it's not accurate. We really don't know its orbit, but we do know that it's within 8 degrees on either side of the sun. That's all I can tell you, Ray.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
And one other thing on your slide here, I don't know if I missed it or not. You have the word Hephaestus.
Right. Hephaestus. Hephaestus was known as Vulcan. One of them is Greek and one of them is Roman. Now Hephaestus, and as you bring up a nice area that I missed talking about. Hephaestus was a misshapen god. He had a hunchback and he was ugly. And he was very misshapen. All our depictions here show a very muscular and virile, strong individual to be Vulcan. But Vulcan was quite ugly and misshapen. And he took to himself the most beautiful woman that he could. And her name was Venus. So you have Venus and Vulcan. You have beauty, Venus, and the beast, Vulcan. And hence all our stories is Beauty and the Beast. So she married the ugly man, and she was the most beautiful woman in our mythology. And both of them are in Taurus.
Okay, that's the depiction on the slide, isn't it? Really?
Yes,
Is it?
right here,
Okay.
Hephaestus. Yeah.
Mm.
Again,
Okay.
here we have Vulcan here too. Again, a very beautiful looking man. But if we read our mythology, we would know that Hephaestus or Vulcan was not beautiful.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so all the Beauty
Thank
and
you for that.
You're welcome. All the Beauty and the Beast stories that we have stem from this association. And I find it also very interesting that both words, as we see them, are V, start with a V, Vulcan and Venus, and the glyph for Vulcan is a downward V. It's really not an arrow. It's just a downward V with a line, with a vertical line. So it's just a very interesting thing to keep in mind. We remember that Venus conveys rays 2 and 5, and Vulcan conveys ray 1. So all of those rays, plus the 4th ray, which Taurus conveys, are associated with Taurus, even though Taurus itself, we are only given as ray 4. So we can see the beauty, you can see the power, you can see the illumination through the one, the single eye. Again, Venus, and if any of you are aware of the evening star or the morning star, even though a planet is really not a star, but it's called a morning star and an evening star, it's Venus that we see in the sky, and it is brilliant and bright. So when someone is fairly evolved, they can engage that 5th ray of Venus, which again will bring wisdom into the mind. Remember, Venus in many respects is a higher octave of Mercury, in the sense that it's really associated with the mind, and it brings light and illumination into the mind. We should mention also that Taurus is associated with a new group of world servers. And I'm going to ask you as a group, why do you think that Taurus would be the ruler of the new group of world servers? Why Taurus? Why not another sign? So put your thinking caps on. There must be some thoughts associated with this.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah, because there's the Taurus ability to bring the light in, get the light, as you mentioned before.
Yes, that's a very important part. There's still another part. Yes, it brings in the light, so that's number one. Number two would be, and it becomes obvious if we think of the element associated with this particular sign, is earth. So it brings the light right here on the physical plane, right into people's hearts and minds, because we are on the physical plane. You see what I'm saying? And we can influence other people on the physical plane. This isn't necessarily it's supposed to be in the ethers. This isn't supposed to be higher mind. This is supposed to be really down to earth, Taurus, on the physical plane where we reach other people.
Okay.
Okay, but you're right about the light. So Taurus is important in that respect. A ruler of new group of world servers. So good on that.
I could add Venus and Vulcan are also seem connected to the new group of world servers.
Okay, in what way?
In other words, Vulcan is that anchoring of soul light on the physical world, and also Venus is that enlightened relationship, and those are both qualities of the new group of world servers in its group orientation and in its anchoring orientation.
Excellent. Yes. Remember also that Vulcan burnishes the metal. What's the metal? The metal is us. It's us, not just the physical form, it's the personality, so that it shines and reveals the hidden life. And what's the hidden life? It's the soul. And so if this is Vulcan's objective, and this is what Vulcan does, well, this is what the new group of world servers are meant to do. They're meant to influence, impulse, inspire humanity so that the hidden life can shine through. So thank you guys. That was very good. See, it's not all that hard, really. Okay, we're going to move along. We're going to go to Gemini. Gemini is the third mode, or the third cross. The third cross is mutable. And the word itself tells us a lot. It moves, it's mutable. It is versatile. It is flexible. It's hard to sometimes pin it down because it is so mutable, so movable. It's also air. Air, as we all know, represents, from our perspective, the mind, and it represents the thinking processes. So in Gemini, there's a lot of stuff going on in the mind. That's why we have a monkey here. A monkey is associated with monkey mind, or chitta. Even the sound that it makes is chitta. And I remember that Tarzan's monkey was called cheetah, right? So it's the activity in the mind. And with Gemini, there's lots of that. It flits around in the mind, just like the butterfly. If we look at its glyph, it really should be a Roman numeral 2. And sometimes we consider that the interplay. Again, you see the word interplay. It speaks of versatility between the opposites. And Gemini is really noted for opposites. Besides its adaptability and its versatility, Gemini is expressive. And if something is expressive, it expresses. What do we use to express besides gestures? Yes, we use our gestures and we use our body, but that usually reflects what we're thinking, doesn't it? So Gemini expresses through the mind, through our thoughts, through our communication, through the words we use, through our writing, through the cleverness that's in the mind, the curiosity, the quick-wittedness within the mind. Again, there's speed associated here. It moves very quickly in the mind with Gemini. Energy does, that is. With all that positive stuff we've just talked about, there are some negativities with that. If there's a lot of stuff going on in the mind could be up in the clouds and not very grounded. So therefore, it can be what we would say not stable, restless, or many times even inconsistent. Words like scatterbrained have been used, lacking concentration or even follow through. If there's all that activity in the mind, the speech could be rapid and it could be very talkative. So these are just some of the qualities that we associate with Gemini. And to help us with Gemini, its ruler, its exoteric ruler, is, and I'm sure you can all guess that what that would be, it has to have to do with the mind. It is Mercury. And so Mercury is the planet of the mind associated with Gemini, again, brings all that energy into the mind. Now, remember we started off by saying it is about polar opposites and a duality, and even the number 2, the Roman numeral number, tells us that it's number 2. So what rays does Gemini offer us? It's ray 2. It's the second one. I mean, it's number 2 in terms of its glyph, even though it's the third sign. There is speculation amongst esotericists that it acts very much like third ray. So even though the Tibetan hasn't given us the third ray as one of the energies that Gemini reveals, we can almost guesstimate, if I can use that word, that the third ray is associated with Gemini. It is, after all, the third sign. Now, the duality part of it. The keynote is, I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. If you haven't been told this yet, or if it hasn't been suggested to you, the study and the reflection or meditation of these keynotes is so important. If you spend a little bit of time really taking that in, thinking about it, sitting with it, what does it mean, number one? Number two, what does it mean for me? So if any of you have Gemini or any of the signs we are dealing with in any of the 3 luminaries, remember the moon, the sun, and of course the ascendant, I would really invite you to spend time with these keynotes. There are keynotes for ordinary man, and the keynotes that we offer here are for the aspirant, the disciple, and the evolving man. So this is the direction that we want to move to. And we said it was ruled by Mercury. And you've seen this slide before because we did use it for Aries. It's obvious what it is. As it is associated with Gemini, how Mercury affects Gemini is it affects the nervous system. Whereas when it was the ruler of Aries, and it was in an esoteric perspective, the nervous system was really not called into being as much as it is in Gemini. In Gemini, it is an exoteric, so it's more outward, it's more in our faces, it's more visible, it's more recognizable. There is that quickness of Mercury in Gemini, and that would affect our nervous system. Okay, and of course the brain. And why we have here the clown is it's because Mercury conveys the 4th ray, and Mercury has to do with opposites. 4th ray has to do with opposites. Gemini has to do with opposites. There's a real connection here. And the caduceus, as we've talked about in the past, has to do with healing, with medicine. Now, on an esoteric level, it is ruled by Venus. In this particular slide, and I've never found a really good slide for this, but this is the best I've come up with. We have here Venus, so you can see my cursor right? Goddess of beauty. We have the idea of twins. I personally do not like when people say a split personality when they refer to Gemini, because I don't really know what that means, nor do I buy into that. It does rule opposites, yes, but it's the opposites within oneself. It's the energies of masculinity within oneself versus the energies of femininity within oneself. And some people, we can recognize that energy. Some people lean more to one side than to another, irrespective of our sex. We know many females that can be a little more aggressive, a little more male-like, and vice versa. Many males that have a feminine quality and have more an effeminate nature, and that has to do with the opposites within oneself. The opposites can also represent the soul and personality, and to try to bring that into balance. So Venus, let's look at Venus now. Venus is the higher octave of the mind. And what kind of a mind then? Remember, this is still Gemini, which still deals with air, and Mercury was its exoteric ruler. Venus now, we pull it up a little higher. It has to do with that beautiful energy going into the mind, giving it a synthetic mind, a mind that is of wisdom, with refined thoughts. And all we have here is the scholarliness of these two twins. And that's why we see all the scrolls and the books. So we see all of that. Okay. And in Mercury, let's just go back to Mercury. We all have seen wings, right? The wings on our helmets, many times depicted, and many times we see wings on the feet of Mercury. It gives us the idea of quickness and the idea of in the air. And with Venus, you see, none of that shows up here, because at this point, it is more about the wisdom and the synthesis of the mind. So Mercury is transmuted into wisdom. Any comments and any questions for Gemini? No. Okay, we move along. Cancer is the fourth sign so far. And again, if we were to look at the glyph, this is a fairly good glyph. If you're sitting in front of me, what does this glyph bring to your mind? And it does bring things to your mind, and I really would like some of you to respond. What do you see when you look at the glyph?
Crab claws.
The crab claws, okay. Yeah, and there's a picture of a crab, and then we see the claws. And what do claws represent? They represent
grasping.
Exactly. Grasping, gripping, holding on, retention. And very often, Cancer is associated with that holding on. And what does it hold on to generally? Holds on to its memory, and holds on to family, what it possesses, and it usually possesses the family. There's more that this glyph brings to mind. Think outside the box. Because if you can look at the glyph and you can come up with things, you will never forget qualities associated with a particular sign. So it's important to really use your imagination here in all of this, really.
Yeah, Cancer's nurturing aspect brings forth the image of mammary glands.
Excellent. Thank you, Walter. Beautiful. Can we see that those are the breasts? Those are the breasts that we use to nurture and to feed. So Cancer does that. It nurtures and it feeds the family, the children. Very much associated with family. The other thing about the glyph, if you look here, is it almost creates a closed circuit, right? There's a wholeness associated with Cancer. If you put your arms out and you want to hold, you want to hold your family, wrap your arms around. there is even an expression of all is seen as one, very much associated with Cancer. The whole is seen as one. It's one of the signs associated with birth, and this is the birth of humanity. It represents the mass consciousness, or where humanity, the sign that humanity was born through or out of. So very much associated with humanity. When we go back in history, and if we were to I think that BL covered a lot of this when she does the labor of Hercules, that the sign Cancer is the sign where the masses and humanity was birthed out of. One of the things about the crab that I have here, is, so that I wouldn't forget to talk about it, is that the crab, if any of you seen the way the crab moves, the crab does not move in a straight line. As a matter of fact, it moves sideways. It almost zigzags, which gives us the idea of the third ray. It can be, because of the way it moves, it goes in this direction and then that direction. It lives in the water, in the sand, or on the land. So there's that kind of ability to be flexible in that way, and that's very third ray like. Right? It has a manipulative quality to it, third ray, and can be very strategic. Slippery is a good word for third ray. And the keynote that we have is that I build a lighted house and therein dwell. As I have Cancer rising, I have spent so much time with this particular keynote, and I've thought about it, and I've really tried to associate what does it mean for me and how does it apply to me. And of course I could spend 10 minutes telling you how it applies for me personally, but everyone has to take that in if it's one of your luminaries, and think for yourself, what does that mean for you? I build a lighted house. What is that lighted house? And therein dwell. In prominent, it's quite prominent in the horoscopes of leaders who have brought nations into being, or who have nurtured and protected their heritage. So we have Nelson Mandela, who had a strong Cancer. We have the Dalai Lama, who had a strong Cancer. So a lot of countries that have second ray to them, even though we're not told that Cancer conveys the second ray, we're told that it conveys the third ray and the seventh ray, have Cancer. So is that a clue? Is that a clue that we should maybe consider second ray somewhere there for Cancer? I would think so, especially with the nurturing and the taking care of family, overprotective. It's extremely overprotective of its family and its children. Also, it's very much associated with a shelter, like a womb. The word house is in its keynote. Okay, it is, I have here the flat chart. I wanted to show you the flat chart again. We started with Aries, and we come down to Cancer. That's the other arm of this cross. It's the fourth sign. So for those of you who are not familiar with what a chart looks like, the numbering starts with the first one associated with Aries, the second one associated with Taurus, third one associated with Gemini, and the fourth one associated with Cancer. Every one of these is considered a house, and a house is just a field of experience. That's all it is. And according to the Tibetan, it's the least important. According to traditional and exoteric astrology, it's the most important. So you can see where the emphasis is. It's our everyday life. It's where we play out all the things that affect us. So in traditional astrology, it's where does it affect us? Fourth ray here is associated with our home. Wonder why? It's got the word house in the keynote. It's down at the bottom of the chart. So everyone has a fourth house, which is associated with home, family, that kind of environment. And as we spiral it up, it would be our ashram. Just to show you that. So It is ruled by the moon. And the moon, did I not mention that Cancer is also water? Remember that the crab lives in the water? It's ruled by the moon, and the moon, we covered that last time, also represents our emotions. So it has a watery, Cancer has a watery emotional quality to it. And therefore, Cancerians can be moody because it rules, the moon is its ruler, has sensitive feelings, intangible sensations, and vague intuitions sometimes will accompany strong Cancerians. Now, how I like to describe Cancer is it's got this outer shell that's very tough. It's a hard shell. And if you eat crab, any of you will know you need to almost use nutcrackers to be able to open up the crab legs. But when you get to the inner part, it's delicious, it's tender, it's soft, it's it's got a totally different quality to it. So Cancerians many times will create an outer shell that's very, very strong and tough, hiding a very sensitive and soft inner. So they don't necessarily wear their feelings on their sleeve. They'll hide that, but they're extremely sensitive because it's ruled by the moon and it's a water sign. The moon many times will represent what we need to feel safe and secure. And what does Cancer do? It overprotects. It will overprotect its children. It'll overprotect itself, creating this strong outer shell so that it doesn't reveal its sensitive nature. But with many Cancerians, you look at them the wrong way and they feel it. They don't often talk about it, but they feel it right away. It's the lunar responses, as I have here, are ingrained. They're automatic, instinctual, and habitual. So they don't even recognize many times how they respond and how sensitive they really are. And since the moon is of the past, it is also associated with our childhood. How we were as children, what we learned as children, that has become patterns that we now live. That's what the automatic or the habitual would represent. These experiences that we've had in the past could be experiences that we brought with us from previous incarnations or experiences that we live as children. But in any event, it is of the past. And as I've said before when I've talked about the moon, these are all things that we know quite well. They are energies that are so automatic that we don't really need to energize them. We just have to recognize them. Because most of the time we're not conscious of these automatic patterns of behavior. The moon also in the chart will symbolize the mother or the feminine principle. So the way we would also consider it is how we mother others, regardless of our gender. How we were mothered or nurtured by our father as well. How our relationship is to or with our mother. Or how we need to be nurtured or mothered. So the goal of the moon is to work in trying to reflect the light of the sun, not to allow it to eclipse the intended shining of the sun's self in this particular life. Now, we are told that both the moon and the sun veil. From an esoteric perspective, veiling means hide. But I would suggest that for our purposes in learning astrology, when it's in an exoteric placement, let's just work with the qualities of the moon. And some of the qualities are here on this slide. If the moon is in an esoteric position, then I would look at what planet does it really veil and what does that mean. So for all intents and purposes right now, let's leave it as the moon is the exoteric ruler of Cancer, and it just adds to the sensitivity, to the mothering, to the feeling qualities that we associate with Cancer. So now, what is its esoteric ruler? It's Neptune. Neptune is the god of the waters. So again, do we see how both rulers have to do with water, have to do with feelings, have to do with our emotions? Moon is about our feelings and our emotions, and Neptune is the god of the waters, having to do with our feeling and our emotions. So they both, in a water sign, would underscore that watery nature of Cancer, that highly sensitive quality to Cancer. Just like in Gemini, we had both rulers that had to do with the mind. Both rulers here have to do with feelings and emotions. Now, on well, I was going to say on not a very evolved Cancer, would Neptune really have an effect? And the answer is no, because these esoteric rulers only kick in when someone is already walking the path, on the path, and when someone is either an aspirant or a disciple. That's when the Neptune or the esoteric rulers actually start to have some kind of effect. Now, Neptune is very powerful, and depending on where we're at, how emotional one is, and most of us are most of the time, right, will depend on how we appropriate the energies. So even though Neptune is on the higher turn of the spiral, being that it's an esoteric ruler, it still can, we still can appropriate the qualities associated with Neptune, which can be nostalgic, which can still be emotional, which can still be confusion. It still can be all those qualities that we normally think of from an exoteric perspective. But if we spiral it up on a higher turn of the spiral, Neptune is associated with that unbelievable, intuitive, and passionate, compassionate love, what we call universal love, or we call the sea of love. It's transcendent universal love. Does that really mean anything to most of us? Truly. So you can see the haze down in this picture below here, the haze, not being able to see clearly. And that's what Neptune sometimes does. It doesn't allow us to really see things properly with great clarity, but we can sense it, and our senses, depending on how emotional we are, can be accurate, or they can be just our feelings bringing on our thoughts associated with those feelings. Kama manas, right? Okay. I think that's it on Cancer. Yeah. Any comments? Questions, comments? Oh, come on. I must have triggered some thoughts on this. When we speak of Neptune as related to the god of the waters, or this whole universal, we tend to speak of the depth of being swept away by the tidal waters, which are much bigger than ourself. So we see the idea of the universality of it all, the bigness of it. Neptune is also very much associated with the heart, with the love that is self-sacrificing, which is giving. It's understanding of all, totally unconditional. On the downside, it can bring us chronic depression, mental or emotional illnesses. The mystical presence of Neptune wants us to feel filled with abundance and wholeness, but many do feel very empty, and hence there is the need to fill oneself when you feel empty, because there's this nebulous something or other that can't be defined, and they don't have a sense of what it is. So what does it lead to? It leads to filling oneself with that which is a substitute for the real thing, which is love. And what kind of substitute is there? There is alcohol, there's addictions of all kind. That's what fills one, because again, there's this amorphous, undefined something or other through Neptune that people can't, land on. What is it that one is sensing? So it leads to that which anesthetizes someone, so that your feelings are just that, anesthetized. They're not, you don't feel the hurt, you don't feel the pain, you don't feel the sadness. So Neptune does rule drugs and all behaviors that numb us to reality, whatever that reality might be. It is a form of escape. And it is the planet of denial and the lack of reality. So we can see the upside and we can see the downside of Neptune. And even though it's in an esoteric position, how many people are really that evolved that they can garner all these esoteric qualities of Neptune? So because Neptune is so powerful and it's such a strong influence in the life, it is a transpersonal planet. Even though it can bring on denial, addictions, confusion, all that is for the purpose of growth and learning one's lessons. So it can bring about transpersonal transformation. Because one suffers does not mean one doesn't learn from that and one doesn't grow. We know that humanity grows through suffering. And Neptune is a very good indicator of that. So, any comments, questions? This is supposed to be interactive, my fellow students. I invite you. Okay, I'll move on to Leo. Is that you, Walter?
Oh, yes. Basically, I just wanted to comment that Neptune is such a deep influence when considering Cancer that it's also one of the only signs whose hierarchical ruler is also the same as the esoteric ruler.
Excellent. That's true. That's right. So you can see one would have to be fairly evolved to start being influenced with that beautiful unconditional universal love, because it is the same planet in its hierarchical placement. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we move on to Leo, and Leo is on the fixed cross. It's the 5th sign, number 5. Now, the numbering of these signs is important. And, I didn't mention with Cancer, but Cancer's number is number 4. And if any of you have done a little bit of reading, 4 is considered quite like its density. It's the lowest one of the flat chart that I showed you. The Earth is associated with a cross. The Earth is the 4th globe, and 4 is very much associated with humanity. So the number 4 is very, very important with Cancer. Now, as we're moving into Leo, we're looking at number 5. Well, what is 5 associated with? What is 5 associated with? You should know this by now. 5 is associated with a mental plane, right? We'll get to that in a minute. But remember the number. Now, if we go back to the glyph, I wish I could draw this on a board for you. Let's go back to the glyph of Cancer. Do I have it here? Okay, so if you take this circle, right? Can you see that with my cursor? And this is humanity. This is the birth of humanity. This is mass consciousness. And you take the circle and you kind of lift it up like that. You lift it up yourself above this you come down to Leo. You see, you take the circle and you lift above the circle. So in Leo, you stand above the crowd. It's a very important sign for the evolvement of our personality, for our involvement of who we are. It's fixed, it's fire, and fire is important for Leo. Leo roars. The lion roars, it doesn't sit still. So we have that fiery quality to Leo. Leo, if you think of the lion, what does the lion do? Well, the lion is king, right? The male lion is king of his lair, and he lives on the mound. He sleeps most of the time and lives on the mound. And when he roars, everybody pays attention to the lion. I am king. I'm the king of the jungle, right? So this is the person, and then ality. This is the person rising above the crowd. This is the individual. This isn't about the crowd anymore. It's about the individual, and that individual needs to self-express. And how do we self-express? Well, we said it earlier. You self-express through your gestures, you self-express through your voice, you self-express through your written. And through Leo, you can do all of that. You can self-express. And we have a stage here because this is where so much self-expression occurs. So many people in Hollywood are on stage, right? And many, many of them have a strong Leo in their chart. There's certainly no shyness to Leo. They need the stage. In Leo, we have the idea of being, well, let me just talk first about the ruler, and then I'll say a lot. It is ruled by the sun. It is ruled by the sun on all three levels. There's a sun for the exoteric ruler, there's a sun for the esoteric ruler, and there's the sun for the hierarchical ruler. Now, I know we're not really talking about hierarchical rulers very much in this series. It's enough to understand the esoteric ruler. For many people, it's a whole new area. So if I hint on it, that's all I'm doing, is just going to hint. Let's look at the sun from an exoteric perspective. The sun shines. The sun is the center of our universe. Now, if we think of exoteric ruler and what it means for Leo, it is, look at me. I'm the sun. Pay attention to me. I'm in the center. All eyes are on me. So it is in the center. It draws to itself, right? Like a magnet, like the sun. It draws to itself. It wants to shine as well. So that what does the sun do? The sun magnetically draws plants and us to it, but the sun also shines and feeds others. So we have this idea of magnetism associated with Leo. We have attractiveness associated with Leo, and the ability to be radiant from within. This, because it's fire, right? It can be very self-assured. It can be warm-hearted. It can be optimistic, proud, like the lion, the pride of the lion. And of course, the sun is creative. It can be dignified, and we'll look at the lion, how when he roars, how dignified he can look. And some of the weaknesses is that kind of dominance. Look at me, I'm in the center. Can lead to domineering. It can lead to vanity. It can lead to extravagance, being arrogant, being childlike. Why do we say childlike? Well, children demand a lot of attention, do they not? We have to focus our attention on the child. Many times in movies, the child will say that child stole the role, right? All our attention goes to children. So Leo is very much associated with childlike and children. It can be overbearing, can be cruel. Because, why? What are the rulers of Leo? It is the power of the sun, the roar of the lion, its first ray. It is also the fifth sign, and so therefore, not therefore, but also it's the fifth ray, ray 5, that is its that it conveys as well. We saw here, let me go back to the keynote. I am that, and that am I, or that I am. I've seen it both ways. What is the that? I would invite you to think about that. What is the that is in Leo? I am that, and that I am, or that am I. So it's ruled by the sun, exoterically. Now we see the roar of the lion. You see how the lion looks dignified and proud and lifts himself up. He's above the others, above the crowd. These particular paintings, we see here actually Hercules and the lion, in the labor. I think it's the fifth labor. We saw Hercules battling with the lion. I think that's depicted here too. I'm just trying to see what else is here. We see the king, we see the crown up here, and the heart, because on the esoteric side of things, the sun shines from the heart, being lion-hearted. Remember Richard, the lion-hearted. The sun, really radiates from the heart. And what is the sun here? It's the soul. So we see the heart and the crown here. Also, the esoteric meaning of the sun, because it veils, would be, in this particular case, Neptune, which again stands for universal love. Some people also refer to Jupiter in its exoteric position of the sun, but I didn't go there with that. I just left it as the sun. But a lot of people will say exoterically it's Jupiter, esoterically it's Neptune, and hierarchically it's Uranus. That's another way that some people look at that. Now, the sun highlights the sense of individuality and the creative drive to grow and to develop. We know that the sun stands for the personal self, how the individual will attempt to express, because expression is so much part of Leo, and realize his aims and his ideals so that the personality can shine in the world. That's what the purpose of the personality is. The personality is meant to shine in the world. If I go back here to this slide, see the sun here, the word emittive, outgoing, emittive, and it is fire. Remember, fire was one of the masculine energies, just like air. It's emittive. Every person is a miniature sun, a nucleus or center of creative expression. What is our personality? Our personality is the face we wear in the world. It's what is seen. It's what is known. My name is Eva. I have a particular expression, a particular way in which I see myself and which others see me. And most of it represents who I am, and I'm not referring here to soul. What we feel pleased about or proud about and are easily inflated about. Now, let's think of the sun in an esoteric placement. We said that exoterically, it holds every planet in its orbit, keeps every planet in its orbit, and all the attention is on it, right? If we think of our system, all the planets look to the sun because the sun is the controlling power. It's the nucleus. Well, what else does the sun do? The sun also nurtures all the planets. It also is emittive and gives life and light to all its surroundings. and all its planets and all life as we know it here on Earth and on all the other planets. So it really, really radiates its life to all. That's the esoteric and eventually the hierarchical purposes of the sun. Okay, comments, questions. Remember, this is supposed to be interactive group.
Hi, Eva. I have a
Hi.
couple of comments about Leo.
Excellent.
First off, being a fire sign, me with my Leo personality, I'm very quick to get mad, but I blow up and then it's over.
Mm-hmm.
It burns itself out really quickly. Of course, the people who are devastated in the wake, they don't get over it as quickly.
Mm.
And then, you know, little old me, the center of everybody's universe, wonders how come they're not over it like I am. The other thing I wanted to say is I have thought about that, I am that, and that am I. And I think exoterically it has a lot to do with the fact that the sun is the center of the universe. You know, we're relating to the universal aspect of it, but we're seeing ourselves as that center.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until we can relate to the other half, to the Aquarian half, and see it more in a truly universal manner and less of a personal manner on the higher spiral that we really begin to understand what Leo is about.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something I'm working on as my personality, my Leo personality.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. We know that the sun is magnanimous. It's generous. It enlivens those orbiting, all the planets orbiting around it. The sun in our solar system vitalizes and gives life to all on this planet. The sun sign is full of potential, like the amount of unused fuel that's still in the sun. So as we grow spiritually, we invite the fullness of ourself to be revealed. We invite the fullness of growth and potential. We also, we shouldn't forget this, invite the shadow side of the personality to be seen and illumined. And so it allows us to seek and work on self-improvement, just like BL just said. So the more that the more light that shines on anything, it allows us to see that, but it also creates darknesses where the sun doesn't shine. It creates shadows, and to get to know some of the shadows is an important aspect of growth and evolving. So that's the importance of the sun. So the fifth ray, it conveys the mind. I'm going to turn this off so that the bells don't keep. You all hear the bells? I'm going to just turn. I don't know how to turn this off, to be honest with you. Okay, so I don't know how to do this. Okay, don't know how to do this. I'm sorry. Okay, any more comments or questions before I move on? Okay, I'm assuming that you guys are really getting this because I'm not hearing any questions and I'm not hearing any comments except for the odd one. So you guys are really getting this, and maybe we'll put a test out at the end. See how well you've received it. Anyway, I'm just teasing. We move on to the next sign, the sixth sign. Again, the sixth sign, it's an important number associated with Virgo. If we look at the glyph, and I remember the glyph is always something that has been received by others intuitively, usually through meditation or through being able to pull it down from the rain cloud of knowable things. It's not helter-skelter that we have these glyphs. These glyphs are very meaningful. And if we really paid a lot of attention to these glyphs, we would learn a lot about the sign. This particular glyph almost looks like a letter M with a closed area. You can all see my cursor with a closed area here. One of the ways to look at this is that this closed area is the hymen that hasn't yet been punctured or opened. So it's truly the virgin, the one that has not yet given birth. The energy is kept within, and it's not yet been sullied, so to speak. Hence the word Virgo, which virgin is, is part of the word. It's earth. It has to do with the physical form, and it is mutable. So there's a lot of flexibility here. One of the things I would like to point out about Virgo, it's one of the most misunderstood signs. Basically, Virgo and Scorpio, the two most misunderstood signs I have found in the entire zodiac. Why do I say that? Because Virgo's most important aim is to purify the form. Purify the form so that the Christ life can be born in the cave of the heart. What do I mean by that? Well, if you think of a pregnant woman, she's very careful what she eats, that she gets plenty of rest, that she looks after herself so that the newborn will be as healthy as possible. Well, in Virgo, we nurture the form, right? The one carrying the life that is to be birthed, so that the Christ consciousness, the Christ life, can be birthed, can be born. And so therefore Virgo's most important goal is the purification of the form. How does it do that? Well, it is ruled by Mercury. Exoterically, it is ruled by Mercury. In Virgo, the mind, Mercury, is turned toward the matters of life, towards the things that are needed in order to purify the form. So with Mercury, Virgo looks at the particular, at the small, at all the details with such precision so that nothing goes wrong, so that the form is pure. In order to reach perfection, which is one of the things that Virgo wants to do more than anything, it has to see what isn't right, what isn't pure, what isn't correct. And hence, with Mercury there, it sees what's not right. It sees what needs adjustment. It sees what needs to be corrected here and there. And hence it has been given the reputation of having a critical mind, having a picky mind, pick, and they noticed all the imperfections on people, on themselves, on others, so that they talk about it. Mercury, right? Conveys. Mercury is about the mind. So that's part of the problem for Virgo. There is a meticulous quality to Virgo. Practical because it is earth. Industrious. They're not afraid of hard work. Earth again. They have discriminating minds because of Mercury. Detail-oriented. This isn't like Leo, the big picture. This is detail. Fact-finding. Exacting. The whole area of cleanliness, hygiene, is so much associated with Virgo, which leads to a lot of the professions associated with hygiene, cleanliness, perfecting the form. So you'll have many doctors that are Virgo, many physiotherapists, dentists. I know so many dentists that are Virgos, or dental hygiene, a lot of massage therapy, working with the form, the body, the earthy quality to bring it to a state of perfection. Some of the weaknesses of Virgo, again, because of the mind there, it can be petty, perfectionist, because remember, it wants to purify and therefore seeks perfection. The bar is very, very high for Virgo. Earth and mind can lead to coldness, to being critical. Well, all minds are critical. That's what the mental field is like. The mental field separates. That's what it does. It separates. Mind finds itself on the fifth plane. Remember that? And the fifth plane is about taking things apart. That's what a mind does, irrespective of what ray we have on the mind. A mind separates. In Virgo, even though it doesn't convey the fifth ray, it acts very much like the fifth ray. It takes things apart in order to understand it, the whole. Virgoans love mechanics. They love technical things. They love to take things apart and put it back together. It can lead to worry, melancholy, fears of disease or poverty. Remember, disease is associated with not a healthy form, not a healthy body. I said the word picky, okay? Or you know what? This is very, very interesting. I have seen many Virgoans that are very, very sloppy. You would never think of that for Virgo. And it is because it's not the field of interest. They are very, very fussy when it comes to their field of interest. Other things they could care less about. And there's that sloppiness associated. So within Virgo, I have seen the opposites happen there. The antithesis of neat and clean and orderly. And then, yeah, I've seen the antithesis, the opposite of it. So it's a very interesting thing. It took me a while to come to terms with that. So I offer that with Virgo. So the keynote, since we have it on this page, let's look at it. I am the mother and the child. Okay, that's kind of obvious because this is the virgin right here in the middle, right? Nurturing that Christ life, the child, which is the Christ life to be birthed. I am the mother and the child. The word mother and the M associated with the glyph is very much, it's a good way to look at it. I am the mother and the child. I, God, I matter am. Why am I God? I, God. I, matter am. That I leave for you to think about. So we talked a little bit about that. So that's the exoteric look at Virgo. Let's look at the esoteric ruler of Virgo. It is the moon. The moon is the esoteric ruler of Virgo. The moon is called the mother of form. Again, the idea of mother is associated here with Virgo. It hides the soul in form, gestating until the baby, the Christ principle, is ready to be birthed. Esoterically, the moon veils or hides Vulcan in Virgo. Glorification through the purification and the detachment of matter, or the form nature. Do we see how Vulcan is associated with the form? Vulcan works with form. Remember, it works with the metal, burnishing and polishing and purifying the metal so that the Christ, the soul, can shine and can be revealed through Vulcan. And Vulcan is the esoteric placement here in Virgo. So it really goes well with Virgo. And again, Virgo with a V and Vulcan with a V. These are little associations I kind of like to make. So Any thoughts with Virgo? Is this how you have seen Virgo, as associated with the purification of the form?
Yes, but my question is, I never understand why moon can be an esoteric ruler when the moon is the dead planet.
Well, that's a good question, but in this case, it veils, it hides. It hides, first of all, Vulcan is not known, by most astrologers, and most astrologers don't even look at esoteric rulers. So when we think of moon associated with Mercury, I'm sorry, with I've drawn a blank here. Associated with Virgo, sorry. Yes, we think of moon as the mother of form, but in your own mind, you really need to substitute the moon here for Vulcan.
Aha. Yeah, thank you.
Other comments?
Isn't Virgo interesting in that it's the only sign which actually has a second mantram, at least given by DK?
Okay, and it is?
Christ in you, the hope of glory.
Right, that it's not really the keynote that he gives us, but it is a mantra very much associated with Virgo, right? The Christ in you, the hope of glory. It's a wonderful one to keep in mind and to meditate on. Good. Christ in you, the hope of glory. You see, that's our potential. I hope that for some of you who hadn't thought of Virgo in this way, that it does clear up a lot of misconceptions. In this particular depiction, do we see here a monkey? You know, Mercury is very much associated with monkey mind. There you go. We've moved out of Leo here. Anyway, we move on. Libra. Libra is the 7th. Oh, did we talk about the rays conveyed by Virgo? We didn't talk about the rays. Well, Virgo is associated with the 6th ray. It is, after all, the 6th sign. It also gives us the 2nd ray. So probably the 6th is the personality, maybe the 2nd is the soul. In history, Virgo has been represented by Lilith, by Eve, by Isis, and even by Mary. So in all these cases, we see the feminine principle that allows for the gestation or the growth of the Christ principle within the cave of the heart.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
About why you use the moon to veil something else. Why don't you just use that which is veiled, like Vulcan?
You know, since we did not make this up, this is what the Tibetan has given us. We try to make sense of why and how, and this is basically what has been conveyed to us, and that's all I can say. It would have been easier, sure, to just say Vulcan is the esoteric ruler, but he gave us the moon, and he has told us that the moon veils. You know, I know that the veiling process is in a way, it's meant for those who don't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear, not to understand for some reason. I kind of know that about veiling, and I know that in many of his books, he even prefaces a lot of areas with, I'm writing in such a way that those that aren't ready will not understand. And for the average person, they surely will not understand. So is that given to us so that we have to think it out? these are all up for question. It's not a definitive answer that I have.
I've seen other writers, Torquem Saradarian, for instance. He can take what DK says and put it in plain language and make it clear. And I wonder why DK needed so desperately to try to veil everything.
Again, it was written in such a way that the people reading it are not going to misuse the information. And he's given us so much that he has veiled so that we don't get it until we're ready to get it. I know for myself, having read the books a number of times, certain passages many, many times, every time I read it, and I spend time thinking about it, there is more that falls into place for me. And I get it in ways that when I first started to read, I didn't. So it's written on so many different levels. Not to say that, I'm getting all of it, but I'm certainly getting a lot more than I did early on. So I don't know. It's maybe done in such a way so that the average person doesn't learn or doesn't mishandle information. I know that a lot of what Blavatsky gave out in those early years through the Theosophical Society was misunderstood, was misused, and maybe second go around when he gave the stuff through Alice Bailey, it was more veiled. Although, having read The Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled, to me the language is far more veiled than any of the Alice Bailey work is. I mean, I have to really think it out because it's written in such a way that it's certainly not clear. So I haven't got anything definitive to say about that, except that this is how he gave it to us, and we have to make the best of what we can with it. Now,
Eva,
yes.
I'd like to add that, everything you said is my understanding as well, but I also look at it as DK has taken what modern astrology, and actually even astrology over, going way back, he's taken the symbols that they have given us and put it in esoteric terms, relative for us. We have to get over the Maya that we have there, and the thinking that the form is all and everything. And we do that by slowly understanding what it is that DK has told us, but he's taking us from the familiar to the unfamiliar, in the context that he gives us in his books. So I've always looked at it that way, and like you said, every time I read one of the books, I find something different that I didn't notice before, or it means something more to me now because I just finished one of the other books, or I've got it in a little different context.
Exactly. Right on. Now, Torquem Saradarian, he was a student of the Tibetans, meaning that he read a lot of the Tibetans' work, and he put it into the best understanding that he could, and made it available to the public. Now, there's many contradictory things that he says. That I know that some of us who are followers of the Tibetans' work find objection to. And again, it's because of his understanding of or his interpretation of what the Tibetan has offered. So we all interpret it and we all understand it to the best of our ability. That's all I can tell you. The Tibetan being a master and being one of the few within hierarchy that has the ability to teach not all are teachers, and not all can convey the information the way he has. And that's why he has this rule. And he tells us as much in some of his writings, that there are not that many that have this job to do that he has been chosen to do. So, we do the best. Being disciples and initiates, we do the best that we can with what has been offered and given, and we all interpret it to the best of our abilities. And as we are more into the work, and as BL said, and I've tried to indicate, the more we delve into the material, the more we understand, the more it expands our consciousness, it expands our understanding, and it expands the knowledge base that we assemble and we gather as a result of uh, the work he has offered us. It stimulates the intuitive aspect, the Buddhic aspect within us in the way in which he's written it, you see. So it's not just factual, it's supposed to push us, to expand us, to expand our consciousness. And that's part of what he has said time and time again. And I know that for a fact within myself. I know that it keeps my consciousness with respect to the work and with respect to life just keeps expanding and expanding as I'm into this more and more, as I try to live it and breathe it, and have this in my consciousness. So it's not just picking up a book and reading facts. It's supposed to stimulate within us a lot more than that. And maybe it does. I mean, the proof is there, because it does. And I know that many of us would say the same thing. I'm looking at the time. We're not going to move on to Libra. Libra is considered the halfway mark, which is a good place to stop. But I would invite any other comments and questions before we sign off.
I would just like to point out that Mary submitted an answer down there it's in the little chat block. It brings forth illumination to the awakened disciple on the path, same as the light that descends to earth. I think that might have to do with one of your questions earlier on Taurus.
Okay, that's right. It does bring forth illumination to the awakened disciple. Oh, I think this with a new group of world servers, maybe. Same as the light that descends on earth. Yeah, very good, Mary. Thank you. Yeah. Any more?
And Eva, I would like to ask, this webinar, is this going to be again recorded on the campus?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Where do I find it? Because I tried to find the first one and I don't know where it is.
Well, first of all, Brett would always sends us a link, and it probably comes out in a day or two. First of all, I have to convert the recording, I send it to Brett, and then he makes it available for us on campus. That's one way. Also, I'm sure that Brett could put on campus another link to go in and to find all the recordings. I think he's done that just the other day. I think he did that. I saw that on one of the daily campus. So Brett, if you could make that available for the students so that they have access to this, it would be also great. We're trying to create a library of all these webinars so that they are available to students like yourselves, and you can go back to this and listen to it again and again. A lot of the slides have a lot of material on them, a lot more than I would normally use when I'm teaching, and I'm doing that so that it's there in front of you. When you go back, you have it there.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Eva, I'd just like to say that I just sent out yesterday, it should have been in today's campus digest, the notice for the
Labor.
the Virgo
Labors
of Hercules. And at the very bottom of that email, it has the link to the library where both your and my webinars are stored. So if you got today's campus email, you can go through and it'll be the very last thing in that email on the upcoming Virgo labor.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, BL. So I know I saw it, and I just couldn't remember which day. So it's there. It's available for everybody. Please feel free to, look at that. And you know what? We don't have to stop here. If there are any questions as a result of what has been offered, either bring it with you next time we have the next webinar, which will be a continuation, or alternatively, feel free to ask, comment on the student forum. That's what it's there for. So we can have an interactive dialogue right there in the student, the student forum, so that if there's any confusion, any questions, or it brings to mind more that you would like to know, either BL can respond, I can respond, I can certainly speak to other people if there's something I don't have a response to, but we definitely will get you answers. So feel free to do that.
When are we going to get to Scorpio?
Well, there's Libra, and after Libra, there's Scorpio. So I would think that the next time we do this, we'll definitely cover Scorpio.
When are we going to have another one?
I don't know yet. I have to look at the schedule of when there's an opening. A lot of these Saturdays and Sundays are booked. So we don't want to overlap with something that's already being presented. So I kind of look for openings, and I send out emails on the campus, and I know Kay sends it out as soon as I can hone in on a day. I try to do it, every 2, maybe 3 weeks. So something like that. I think I sent out to Joe that I would try to do it, I think the middle of September, around the middle of September, maybe on a Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember offhand. Does that work?
No, I'd rather get it quicker.
I'm sorry, you want to do it quicker?
Well, the reason is I'm working on Torquem Ceridarium, and we don't know much about his sun sign or his astrology, but we do know he was born somewhere in the first part of November, which makes him a Scorpio.
Scorpio. So you're working on this as one of your final papers. Is that how I'm understanding this?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I promise you.
I'm kind of waiting on that information to start into it because I've got his rays and all that stuff. I figured all that out. The only thing I'm missing is the astrology part.
Which Victor am I speaking with?
This is Victor Dutro.
Victor Dutro. Okay. I promise you will love Scorpio. My son is a double Scorpio. Scorpio sun and Scorpio rising. I have spent so much time learning and understanding Scorpio. I absolutely love talking about Scorpio. It blows people out of the waters because it's such a unusual sign, just like Virgo. Virgo is also the most misunderstood as a Scorpio. So when we do get to it, if you can hold off a little bit, I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay, maybe what I'll do is I'll start writing what I do know.
Exactly. Write what you know, and then you can add more.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Victor.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
All right, anybody else? Well, I appreciate you being there. I want to thank all the people behind the scenes that are helping out. There's Kay, there's Brent, there's BL. Who else today? Joe. So thank you all for being there, for making this possible, and thank you everybody for attending. I very much appreciate it, and I enjoy the questions and the comments. BL, thank you for your contribution. You really add another depth to what is being offered, and that's what it's about. It's about the learning process for all of us. So thank you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you, Eva.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Eva.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.